Welcome to the very first episode of Recovery Real Talk. So, this podcast is about where we break the silence and build a community around the journey of recovery. This podcast is dedicated to those who are navigating the complex path of addiction, as well as their families, friends, and anyone who seeks support and inspiration. The goal is to break down the stigma surrounding addiction, offer support to those in recovery, and give listeners a sense of belonging and inspiration. Every episode will share personal stories, expert insights, and tools to help you understand that recovery is possible and that no one has to go through this alone. Whether you are in the early stages of recovery or you've been walking this path for a while, we're here to offer hope, share wisdom, and remind you that every step forward counts. So thank you for joining us. My name is Angelica Matias Rodriguez, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Christy Doviak.
All right, let's get started. So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Humboldt County, Southern Humboldt.
Right.
I was born probably the last generation out of Garberville Hospital.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that they had a
Yeah.
delivering, I don't want to say station, but you know what I mean? Like
Maternity
a birthing center.
ward,
Like
yeah,
a birthing
yeah,
center,
yeah.
yeah.
They did in Southern Humboldt and lived out there during the time where pot was a big thing. They were pulling in at least $5,000 a pound, and
Wow.
we didn't talk about it.
Definitely don't see that anymore.
No, you do not. I came crushing down. So that's where I was born at. And then I had a good childhood. You know, I traveled back east where my mom's from, Jersey, overseas,
Where overseas?
Japan.
Oh, were you a military brat?
Nope, I was
Huh.
not. But my aunt, she married a Japanese fella,
Mhm.
and we went over there to visit his family. And so I had a good childhood, you know, going
Yeah.
back east, cultured, you know, wasn't just some hills rat, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it sounds like you had a really good childhood. So what was it like growing up in Soham?
It was all right, you know. You had the rednecks and the hippie war going on at that time. So if, you know, you didn't fit into either one of those clans, then you were pretty much your own, go your own route. But I was pretty much in my own league because I wasn't either, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like country music because it was twangy and whiny, and, you know, I just really wasn't into the hippie scene because I just wasn't eating vegan, so.
Right. Did you go to South Fork High?
I did.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yep, I went to Weont Elementary, and then I went to Redway Elementary, and then Miranda Junior High, and then high school was South Fork.
Right on. Cool. So can you share a little bit about your story?
So my story, I'm a late bloomer in everything. I joined the military when I was 19 years old, and that's where things went. After the 3 years, I was military sexual trauma. So that really hit hard, you know, being looked at like a piece of meat. I was one of the first few women in my unit, and they looked at you like meat through basic training, through AIT, all of it, you know. There was a sexual incident there at my AIT where media was around and you couldn't talk to them. You had to march in formation every time. Then over in Kuwait was when it happened, and just struggled. I kept my head down, my mouth shut like I was told to, and got out. Then I, for some reason, decided I wanted to go to do it again. The National Guard, because it was two weeks out of the year, 1 week in a month.
Right.
Then the unit there was another sexual predator, and he came to my house and thought he was going to enter and rape me. And that's when I had enough. I was like, I'm not going to be anybody's sexual pariah, whatever you want to call it, you know, and took my stand, did some drugs, and took the next piss test, and I was out and felt free, but my mental health took a dive. And also had saved a lady's life because I worked the ranges as a civilian on Fort Hood. And that affected me, my mental health too. So those incidences led to a spiral downhill, and came back home lost and not really any direction, really. You know what I mean? Um, took some seminars, with heart math and stuff like that, but that didn't really help. So I dove into, the lack of adrenaline that you lose as a civilian. Uh, it's chill when you get out. It's not the high velocity, rigorous
And the
anymore,
schedules.
right? You're stuck with your own schedule that you make.
Mhm.
There's no routine there. So I just dove into meth and I loved it. It was a 10-year high. I worked hard for my drugs. I wasn't out there thieving from people. I worked hard. I still had a job, making $28 an hour swamping, for a company that a childhood friend had come up with and his partner. And then thought it would be a good idea to help a person that was struggling, and her kid and her partner. They had a bagel shop and did a 180 turn in my schedule. So instead of getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and humping all day out in the woods, I decided to bake bagels, which happened all at one time. So I had to do something. So meth was where it was at to help me get through those 16-hour days, sometimes 20-hour days that I was working. So it was the bagel shop failed, no sense of direction anymore, and really dove heavily into the drugs, growing pot, and just lost myself there for a good 10-year run. And then, so that's how I got into it, was actually trying to help out a friend in her need, was basically it.
Okay. So I have a couple questions, if it's okay.
Shoot it.
So why did you go into what made you go into the military, like enlist?
Always wanted to.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Do you have like family members that?
My grandfather was in the
Okay.
Korean War. My uncle was in the Vietnam War. And my uncle was also in the Cav, so I wanted the Cav. It was just gung-ho about it. My mom, she wasn't too thrilled that I signed up and joined, but
Yeah, when I had thoughts about joining, my mom was like not happy. She was like, "You're not." I came home with the packet. I went to the recruiting office and I took the ASVAB. I took the practice ASVAB, and I just showed up because I was in this place too. Not like that kind of place, but I was just in a place where I didn't know what I was doing with my
Yeah.
life. And so I came home with that packet and she freaked out. So maybe it's a mom thing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. She knew it would change me, though. She grew up as a military kid, and it changes you. You lose a piece of yourself once you serve. And she knew it would change me. So
Yeah. So you were about 21 when you got out then, right? You did the 3.5-year contract-ish? 21. And then you came straight back to Humboldt after that?
no, I worked on the military as a range control specialist. So I was setting up live demolition ranges for the military.
Is that like a NAF position?
No,
Or GS?
nope, just a regular. We have in Fort Hood's one of the biggest training facilities.
I've been there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, you hear bombs
huge.
going
Yeah,
off
all
the
the
time.
time.
Yeah. Well, I was setting up those demolition ranges for the tanks, helicopters, guns. So Trapnell machine gun, Brookhaven, what made the front page of the stories and the media because we lost 3 range on our first setup for live fire. We lost 3 soldiers on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How long were you only at Fort Hood?
Yeah.
And then you deployed to Kuwait?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. There's people are still deploying to Kuwait. I remember when I didn't serve, but when I was living on a military base in Germany, people were getting sent to Kuwait still.
Yep. They are still getting sent there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that, you said you did meth the first time when you were in the military, and then that's when they did their,
No, I did a
drug
pill.
test?
I did a pill. It was an X pill or something like
Like
that.
ecstasy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then you guys did your UA, and then
Yep.
So
And
did
then
you
I was out.
so they just let you go with, all your benefit, like your honorable discharge?
Well, my first discharge was honorable from the United States military. Then my National Guard, not so much.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I hear that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And also,
There's not much protection for women either. Do you
yeah,
know what
I was
mean?
just about to
You
say.
shut your mouth and
Yep.
you carry on.
I met somebody when I was living in Germany. We didn't even know she was a spouse. Her husband was in the military, and we were talking one night, just a bunch of spouses, and I had friends, and she mentioned something about being in the military, and none of us knew she was in the military because she said she had such a horrible experience, and that like a bunch of sexual things, and they would report it, and then they'd get in trouble for reporting it, and she didn't feel safe.
No.
So it was a part of her life that she didn't like to talk about. So it's why we didn't know. So, and I feel like a lot of women definitely are feeling that way.
Yeah.
And they don't feel protected.
Not at all. I don't think that every woman has a bad experience in it. I think that it just happens to the few, and there is no repercussions for it.
Right.
And a lot of kids are coming up murdered, females at
Yeah.
Fort Hood. So
Yeah.
that's concerning. And when are they going to take action?
Yeah, definitely. It's a problem.
It is a problem.
So when you moved back to Soham and you began your drug addiction, when did you think you had a problem at that point?
Hell no.
No.
No, I didn't. Because I maintained a job, I always worked.
Like a functioning.
Yeah, I
what's
was a
it called? Like
functioning addict. Yeah. And then, I see my progression now looking back on it that, yeah, I was hooked because I liked it, because I didn't have the flashbacks anymore. I didn't have any feeling really. When I got out of the military and then I asked for the help, they gave me, they wanted to give me all these pills. I ended up not feeling, not crying. I wasn't happy. I had zero feeling whatsoever. I was a robot. And so I got off of those drugs, but meth was great. And what I had was what I thought was a good thing, because I didn't feel anything anymore, and you lose yourself to that addiction. But pulling myself out of it was a whole nother journey on its own.
Right.
Which was it'll shock you. I was going to kill myself.
Oh.
Yeah, it was 9:30 at night. It was dark and I was on foot, and I didn't tell a single soul. And I was headed up to Evergreen Meadows, where I was staying in a van. And I was going to clear out the van of all my belongings, and I was going to end it. I never told a single soul what I was up to. And because I was just tired, didn't see any direction, and I was tired of living like a druggie, ashamed, But on my way up there, halfway up, a guy came running out at me, said, "God told me to come and tell you that you've been dealing with troubles of faith. And as long as you have faith, all of your dreams will come true. God loves you, therefore I love you." He hugged me and walked away. I
Wow.
never saw that individual a day before, and I never saw that individual a day after.
And Soham's really small, right?
It
Everybody
is.
knows everybody.
Yep, pretty much.
Kind of like Rio Dell Scotia.
Yep.
Ish area.
Yep.
Wow.
And so that sent me into a holy crap moment,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, so I'm standing in the shower praying for some salvation and not thinking anything of it. The guy comes into my trailer and I end up pregnant. with my kid. And there you have my salvation. I wasn't asking for a child, but that was the one thing that was going to pull me out of there and say, it's time. It's your time.
So would you
to
say
stop.
that was your turning point?
That was my turning
Was
point.
finding out you were pregnant?
Yep. I called my mom and was done after that.
Did you quit the cold turkey way, or did you go to a facility?
I quit the cold turkey way.
Tough.
And it wasn't that tough.
Really?
It really wasn't that tough.
I've heard other stories where people say that they had a really hard time quitting just cold turkey and then being in a facility. I've just a few.
I was too ashamed to go to a facility or say that I was an addict. My mom was not a weak person. You know what I mean? That's why I never went home after, becoming addicted, because there was no way, she would have shit on me real good. And,
I think that's what moms do.
Yeah, exactly. So I never,
How long?
she had suspected,
Mhm.
because she saw my decline in weight and, I looked like a damn skeleton. But that was the turning point.
So did you see your mom often during your addiction, or had she not spoken to you in a long time?
We didn't really speak. I left the hill and never went back.
Wow. What would you say were some of the hardest challenges during that time frame where you were clean and you were trying to stay clean?
So I didn't have a hiccup until she died. She died about 8 months after I had Livy, and she was in a facility. Her heart was sending out clots, and then she had to stay 8 months in, I believe they call it, I don't know, it's the cancer treatment right next to St. Joseph's. So she was staying there. It was like $40 a night.
I don't know what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they have that live-in place.
Yeah.
So she was up there, and losing my mom, I had dove back into drugs after that for a good minute, after she died. And then I just kept hearing her in the back of my head, stop feeling sorry for yourself. People die all the time. This isn't your first rodeo, And so I had to pull myself out of that again. And I did it on my own. I took a bunch of CBD and just slept. And the second time coming off of it was the roughest, because you get the body aches because they cut it now. It's methamphetamine. Once it leaves your system, you're good. You've kicked it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then with the cut and the diluting of the meth, then they give that body aches like you're coming off a heroin or an opiate, and that's what made it worse.
Like the withdrawal.
Yeah.
The real bad withdrawal symptoms where you just feel sick. And
Yep.
I think it's called, I've heard people say dope sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
dope
what
sick.
they would call it.
They could, for opiate addictions, yeah. But they were cutting it with, I believe, opiate, so.
I feel like that's happening a lot these days, and that's why we have so many accidental overdoses.
Yep. Yeah.
Or people think it's something, people think they're doing heroin, and then they figure out that they actually were sold fentanyl, and they do their normal heroin dosage, and then they accidentally overdose.
Yep.
So I feel like that's just happening a lot.
I don't think there's heroin on the street anymore.
It's just fentanyl,
Mm-hmm.
and it's cheap.
Yep.
So,
and easy to get.
Yeah. It's true.
The 2 weeks coming off, the body aches, my carpal tunnel was kicking my ass, but I had to do it. Failure was no longer an option. My mom was dead, and I had a kid to raise. So I had to pull my head out of my ass real quick.
I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
I can't imagine that's a really hard thing to do. Did you have any support systems or relationships that helped during that period of time where either the first or second time you tried to get clean?
I did not. My friends came around, they were proud of me for pulling my head out of my ass, but I didn't really have like a support group network, somebody coaching me on saying,
Like
"Hey,
a
you got
sponsor.
this." Yeah, no sponsors.
Did you go to
Never
is it
went to
NA? Is
I
it
never went to
technically?
NA, never went to AA. I maybe did once because a friend of mine asked me to go, and it was kind of cool, but it really wasn't my thing. God is where I led into. So after my second addiction, when my mom had passed, Jehovah's Witnesses were coming beating on my door. And I stopped and they gave me a magazine and I read it about 2 or 3 months after. And I'm like, I understand what this book is saying. It was about grief. And of course, they knew my mom had died. And, it was in regular English. Me and you could read it. It wasn't in Shakespeare drab, 14th century English. You can understand where their principles were coming from. And that's where I gravitated to. I took 3 years to infiltrate the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I ended up getting baptized and becoming a Jehovah's Witness.
Are you still part of the church?
Absolutely not.
No.
I am a practicing gay person, so I got the boot.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Well.
And just recently have met somebody.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You never told me that.
Nope.
Guys, I know Christy off camera and she's never told me that. That's awesome. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I wanted family. That's, that camaraderie that you miss from the military.
Community.
Yeah.
Like a support system almost. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people look at, I remember I went to St. Bernard, so I went to private school.
Yeah.
And I remember we talked about religion and why people want to choose religion. And, I thought to have something to believe in. And I think my religion teacher at the time, Deacon Brown, said, well, sometimes people just are lonely and they want to be part of a community.
Yeah.
They don't have family. They're introverted and I didn't even think about that. But I feel like a lot of people long for that.
Yep.
And so it's perfectly understandable to turn to religion or turn to support groups and stuff.
Yeah.
So I totally see where you're coming from because it was just really you and your daughter at that point, right?
Yep.
Yeah, wanting a family.
Yeah. Yearning for family and, because my mom's family, they're from the East Coast. Half of them are already dead, so just wanting that sense of family. And they were great for a time, but then my kid, during their congregation meetings, they would be always talking about sex. And, my kid, we started when she was 5. She's now telling me, Mom, it's inappropriate, right? I don't want to hear about sex all the time, every time we go to church. And I had, you're right. Okay. But when you have your daughter telling you, Mom, it's not for me, I had to say, okay.
Yeah, you put your...
Because this was, the church was what I wanted, what I needed at that time, and not what she needed. So I've never pushed anything onto her. I've never sugarcoated anything for her. She knows about my addiction. She knows that she won't ever see her dad because of his addiction. And, now we have a confirmation that we found a bone of his. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I'm actually okay with it, being missing from 2017 to finally getting an answer.
Right.
Was...
I feel like people go missing in Humboldt all the time and are left with no closure because they don't know what happened to them.
Yeah. Well, half of my high school graduating class is gone.
Wow.
Bad pot deals or ODs or, so doesn't matter where you are. You think you're safe, but you're not,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you navigate the process of rebuilding trust with your loved ones and your friends when you were overcoming your addiction?
Slowly. Very slowly, some that just hey, how's it going?
Right. Like checking in.
Pay you back the money,
Right.
$100 at a time, and then slowly just going over and doing like regular things that people do. You go and watch a football game, you have a get together.
Right.
Real slow, real slow.
Do you have those friendships still in your life these years later?
I do.
That's great.
I do. I am, and I am thankful for it.
Did you have any resources while you were trying to get sober that were helpful to you, that helped you get sober, or what helped you push through? Like, how did you get over the cravings? Because I hear that when people are trying to get clean that they have cravings or triggers. And how did you overcome that?
I never had any real cravings. Occasionally I'll pop off with, man, wouldn't it be great if I could just be a dirtbag again and live underneath that bridge?
I've heard people say
what I
that
mean?
before that
But
are in recovery.
But it's just saying, for the wow factor. I don't ever want to be back there ever again. I don't miss the drug. I don't miss the high. I have my kid. My kid was my driving force, and my mom passing away was my driving force. When her grandmother on her father's side tried to come after her and take me to court, that was like a recap of when I was a child. And so just living those experiences as a mom from my childhood in a different role became my driving force that I don't want drugs ever again. It's not for me. A 6-pack of beer lasts me a month. We were just talking about that before we got on camera.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I never had those cravings. And working with the individuals that I work with now, the clientele,
Yeah.
I still don't get cravings. I still could care less about it. But yeah.
Prior to when you found out you were pregnant, did you ever have like a, oh shit, I have a problem moment?
Yeah. Yep. I was standing in the bathroom crying, praying to God. What the hell? Send me, I need some salvation. Please show me the way. Give me some salvation. I know that you didn't put me on this earth to be a frickin' drug addict. Show me another sign, because the military was not it, which I was hoping it was, but it was not. And so that was my aha moment. I was crying in the shower.
Did you ever think about possibly working at the VA at one point and helping other female soldiers go through, help navigate, I guess relate?
I did, but I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I let it happen, even though I had no control. But I still was ashamed. So I didn't have anything to offer. You know what I mean?
Right, because this wasn't something you were willing to talk about.
Right.
That makes sense.
I mean, I still feel guilty because after the fact so a friend of mine reached out and I asked him to go and find my medical records and my chart, my packet. It took him 2 weeks with a paper pushing geek in the military to find my packet, and it was already sealed in with the rapist packet, but it was also sealed with 5 other packets, which means there was 5 other rapes. So where I landed on that, I don't know.
That was probably really hard for you to hear.
That was a rough time for me to hear, and I still feel guilty,
Right.
I still carry the guilt of, where did I land? Was I number 1 or number 6? When does this individual get caught, Never. Retired. Full military benefits.
Wow. Oh, that sucks.
And then, fighting for my VA benefits,
not
you
everybody.
you need to prove this. It took
Yeah.
me 25 years to navigate that system.
Yeah, my brother served as well, and he gets the runaround from the VA too. And
Well, I will say stick with it. To any veterans, stick with it because it's frustrating. It's tiring. It's energy draining, but it is yours. You earned it and you are worth it, And a lot of people, veterans are like, well, there's other veterans out there that need it more. And that may be true, but you still served and you still put in your time.
yeah.
And if you have a disabling disability,
Yeah, I just had that conversation with one of the veterans at my job. I told him, you need to call the VA and get your benefits. I told him the same thing. I was like, you did the time. You put in the work.
yeah.
And he just was like, no, it's not. And I was like, it's worth it. You earned that. That's yours. Those are your benefits.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to convince him to call, but people are just so overwhelmed with the VA, and just I've heard stories from different people.
It's the same with Social Security.
Yeah.
It's always going to be no first.
Or they like to give the runaround. Oh, you got to call this person.
Oh, yeah.
This person.
Yep.
And then you leave messages and messages and you don't hear back. And I can see why people get so fed up.
However, the VSO in Humboldt County, they are amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes me happy to hear.
I got a cold call from one during COVID.
Oh, really?
That's what started it all, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear that we have that resource in Humboldt County for the veterans that we do have here.
Yeah.
I wish that it could be like that everywhere,
Yeah.
Especially with everything, that people that fight for our country do.
Yeah.
What strategies or practices help you maintain your mental and emotional health?
I have a VA shrink. And she is amazing. She has given me, working through my PTSD, she gives me breathing techniques, and people look at me like, breathing, really, Christy? And I'm like, yeah, breathing, sucker, because it really does work.
Right.
Box breathing. And then, I'm working on my self-worth and no more negative thinking because my boss is amazing. And
love her.
Oh,
I thought we were talking about the same person. We are not talking about
No, we are not talking about the same
person.
But he is amazing, and he no longer wants to hear me call myself a dirtbag because he
It's
sees
negative
something.
self-talk.
Yeah, the negative self-talk.
I used to do that too.
Horrible, and I'm working really hard at it. And I'm doing the Said Guru guy, so I like Tony Robinson to listen to for his pep talks. And, I think being in the job that I have, when I first started, was amazing. So that was my aha moment, like, you were born for this.
Right. Do you ever put, I know that's something that I was trying to do when I would negative self-talk is I used to write on Post-its and I'd put them around my bathroom mirror in the morning so that those were the first things that I saw when I looked at myself in the mirror instead of being like, dang, you look like shit.
Yeah.
Or you gained some weight or something. Oh, you're breaking out, or I don't know what is. I would put Post-its. I would write encouraging things and talking to myself nicely. Yeah, I do a lot of journaling.
Yep.
Yeah, that definitely helps. So I was just saying maybe you can put some Post-its up in your bathroom or in your car, on your steering wheel.
I did have it. I did have it, because there was moments where I went and talked to my shrink and I was like, there's 45 minutes that I'm missing out of my drive. That's dangerous. And she was like, okay, so you're disassociating when you're driving. And that's not healthy. So I had Post-it notes in my car dash, and it said, Jehovah loves you. You've come so far.
Right.
Your daughter is important to you. She's grown up so well. She's better than me at boundaries. She's like, nope. And then and that's what her mind is set, and I love that about her. So just making sure that I'm working on the no more self-negative talk.
And she looks just like you.
Yeah.
Like, identical. I saw you post that picture of her in her Harry Potter, and I was like, oh my gosh. I even zoomed. I was like, she looks just like her mom.
Yep.
So, you guys have a pretty good relationship then, huh?
We do.
You guys are super close.
I love her to death. She melts my heart.
That's good to hear. It makes me happy. How do you stay motivated to continue your recovery day by day?
My kid. And the progression that I've seen through myself. You know, I got a good job. That makes me happy. You know, that aha moment that I had when I, about when you're done being nervous for the 6 months and you're sent out there and you're like, okay, this is it.
Did you start at Outreach or
I
peer
started
coach?
as a peer coach.
I remember when we first met.
Yep.
You taught me so much. I'd be like, but I don't understand. And you would like sit down and explain it to me. But you also told me what I didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
So it was definitely something.
But I'm telling everybody what they don't want to hear. You know,
Right.
you have to have the difficult conversations with people.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
And that rapport building is important.
It's super important. I tell people that all the time. You have to build a relationship with this population, with individual, just in general, with anybody really. If you're going to tell them something they don't want to hear.
Absolutely.
But it took me. I had to build relationships, and now I have I love them. I love my residents. I love them so much. I love my job. I really do.
I know.
And
you had another job, and then you stayed.
I know.
I was excited.
Like, I'm going to stay where I'm at. I'm just not ready yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
One of the bosses
did not.
Was like, there's going to be a property management position over there. I said, well, I'd be amazing at it, but don't worry. I'm not leaving.
Yeah, I know that people were really concerned about who my replacement was going to be.
They were.
And the residents were scared. And when I told them I was staying, they were like, oh my God, we're so happy. And they tell me they love me, but, we can't really say those kinds of things. So I'm just like, thank you. But it's nice to be that. I totally get what you mean is what I'm saying by building relationships is so important.
Absolutely.
Because they respect you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's anybody, So I definitely get where you're coming from.
They just want to be heard.
Yeah, really.
They're coming from living on the streets.
Right.
Where you are looked down at and disrespected, but they're living human beings
That's what I tell people. I'm like, they're humans. They're people.
Yep, absolutely.
So I tell people that all the time. I think I say that at least once a week. They're people.
Yep.
Or I'll be like, I'm a human being. Like when I'm teaching them something, I'll be like, I'm a human being and I have feelings too. And I know you're upset, but you're not. Now you're making me upset and I have feelings and I want to listen to your feelings, but I'm not going to listen to them while you're yelling at me because that's not how we communicate.
Right.
So that's like a boundary thing,
Yeah.
Like putting up boundaries.
I still don't have those boundaries. I let them yell.
I do let them.
I let them yell and then I ask them while they're yelling, is there anything else?
What can I do to help you?
Is there anything else that you
do that? I'll
about?
Be like, I hear you. And I make them sure that they feel validated. Yeah. And then I'm like, what can I do
But by the end of their yelling session, they're like, I'm sorry.
Oh, sometimes they walk away and they come back like 2 hours later and they'll be like, I just wanted to apologize. And I'm like, it's okay. You were upset and you had every right to feel the way that you did.
Yep.
So I think I
don't shun them off as it's all right. And I say, well, thank you very much for.
Yeah.
Because you want to hold them accountable.
Yeah. Like, hey, that wasn't okay.
Right.
But there are other ways. Yeah, I didn't appreciate it.
And there are other ways to get what you need heard.
Yep.
However, I will accept your apology.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this was, because I know I can't do it, this podcast the way that I wanted to. But I found a way to make it work, but they haven't inspired me. And have educated me. You have educated me. Everybody that I've worked with has educated me on this population and housing first and everything. So I definitely have learned a lot. And I'm still learning. I still probably have a lot to learn. I think everybody does. Because it's still I think we're all still kind of figuring it out as a state.
For sure.
How to navigate this because there's no trainings for HomeKey. I've dug. I have dug through tons of webinars and it is like impossible. And so we're really just learning as we go and figuring it out one step at a time, one day at a time. So
yeah,
totally.
One recovery at a time.
In what ways have you grown or changed as a person since starting your recovery?
I have gotten fatter and older. But I also have learned a lot about myself. It took me 47 years to learn the word no. It and just having that my kid see my progression and be excited about it, right? She feeds the homeless population. She was pulling shit out of the trunk of my car after we went grocery shopping, and I'm like, okay, all right, now we have to sit down and we have to have the talk. You cannot give them food that is not wrapped. It's got to be packaged, sealed, because they won't take it. And you're now taking food out of your mouth. So, I mean, just watching her grow and want to help and the loving kindness that she shows people too. I think I diverted from the damn question. Tell me it again.
I said, in what ways have you grown or changed as a person since starting recovery?
I don't think I've changed that much. I've changed a lot, but I just couldn't nail it, one thing particularly.
How do you handle setbacks, and what role do they play in your overall growth?
Setbacks are amazing, and I handle them, I think, pretty well. One setback is that I just bought a car, and I had been planning on buying a house. So with that $30,000 car loan, it's making it impossible to buy that house for that, $350,000 loan. So
Yeah.
debt to credit ratio, I'm learning. So I'm taking it in stride. That's how I do. I just one foot in front of the other. Okay, well, what else can you throw at me?
Just like pretty much one day at a time, kind of going with the flow.
That's it. That's all you can do.
You seem very go with the flow. I think when I first met you, I was like, she seems very, very just go with it.
Yep, just go with it.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is just starting their recovery journey?
It's worth it, and keep up with it. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Getting off of that, getting it out of your system. The pains and aches go away. Face your traumas head on, because they will come up again, and be ready for that. But don't shy away from it, because you're worth it, is what I tell people.
Nice. It's good advice. What do you wish more people understood about the process of recovery?
People say that you don't ever recover, which I think is bullshit. I have recovered, and I work around the population that we do that are co-occurring drug addiction, with my choice of drug, and I don't crave it. And so I do believe that, with a little bit of effort and a little bit of drive, you can fully recover, because I don't crave it. I don't miss it. I don't even think about it unless it's brought up, on the rare occasion when you're like, fuck, if only I could be a dirtbag again. But then, it's not worth it.
Nice. What are some goals for the future now that you're in recovery? Like, are there any more goals that you see down the road? Because you've been clean about, you said 8 years?
Mm-hmm.
So did you meet any of those goals that you wanted to when you were going through recovery, like the goals that you set?
I have. I've met them. My last goal is to race in the Baja 1000.
What's that?
It is a off-road race.
Like
in Baja, California.
With a car?
Yeah. With a truck.
The truck?
You can do a truck, you can do a motorcycle, but I'd like to race that. But that's my last goal in life, other than buying this dang house. So.
All right. Well, what are you most excited about as you continue on your recovery journey?
Every day, I get to wake up and watch my daughter grow, and I am still alive and thankful that I can.
That's awesome. Do you have anything else that you want to maybe share, or any advice you want to give to anybody that is either, going through possibly the same things that you are?
Uh, just keep with it. Keep on that recovery track because you're worth it. Everybody loses themselves and their self-worth, but once you are find that mindset of recovering, getting off of your addiction or your drug of choice, whether it be eating, sex, whatever, it's worth it in the end, and you can be happy. There's a whole world out there to experience through clear eyes.
Oh, it's great. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm real glad that I got to
Yeah.
hear your story. I didn't know a whole lot of. I know we briefly touched base on it in passing when we
Yeah.
talk about stuff, but I had no idea about a lot of that stuff. I can tell it's something definitely that you don't like to talk about often, but I really appreciate you for coming out
Yep.
and speaking about this. You know, there's probably someone out there going through the same thing you are, and you are the proof of this is possible.
It is possible.
Yep. So thank you.
At any time. Thanks for
Sounds
having me.
good. Of course.